to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crazy Show. Another exciting show, definitely another exciting guest. Let me tell you where we're going today. We're going to talk with the beautiful Stephanie Greenwood. I know you heard this name if you follow social media, especially TikTok. So let me tell you where we're going with this. I know a lot of you guys have saw her post, been listening to her, following her journey, dealing with relationships, a relationship, trying to come out of it, fostering a family, her children, and basically trying to reset and redirect her life, and at the same time empowering others to understand that reset, beast mindset, rebranding, even through adversity. So, without further ado, let's welcome to the show all the way from MISSISSIPPI, the one, the only Miss Stephanie Greenwood. Stephanie, how we doing?
I am doing great, Andre. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and continue to hopefully help empower more people. So I'm excited.
Pretty much born and raised in Mississippi. Tell the viewers a little bit about who Stephanie is before we get started.
Well, I work in human resources for a healthcare organization, a rather large one here in our community. I'm an HR manager. I have 4 grown children. I have 11 grandchildren, so I've lived quite a life. So pretty much, I play pool competitively. That's something that a lot of people don't know about me, but I do play pool. Thinking about going to play in a pool tournament today. Haven't decided yet, but yeah, that's mostly me in a nutshell. My pool and my work. That's what I do, and help empower others, hopefully.
Now, as a child, I'm gonna take the people down the rabbit hole so they can understand the past to the present. What was it like for you growing up as a child? You had to overcome a lot of different obstacles. What were some of those things that you had to go through as a beautiful young girl growing up in Mississippi?
So my parents were not very ambitious people. My mom really didn't think that having a job and a career was the way to go. It was, get a man and have him support you. Um, it was chaotic. It was not a very loving family household. I have siblings, a younger brother and sister, and we were rather poor. Like I said, my parents didn't really have a lot of ambition, so we moved around a lot. We were hungry a lot. We just didn't have a very stable home, a very stable family unit altogether. Even aunts, uncles, grandparents. It was very dysfunctional.
How did that shape you? Like, I know it's kind of difficult to remember, but like, what was the things that made it difficult and challenging for you growing up as a child? Their behavior patterns.
Well, it's not difficult for me to remember. It's very burned into my brain, and it has shaped who I am. But some of their behavior patterns, my mom was very allegedly narcissistic. When I look back on it, everything was about her. She didn't. She didn't know. She didn't know how to help us to self regulate, and it was just kind of just do what you need to do, figure it out, and you'll be okay, and don't come to me with it. And so you learn that as a child to go and try to get validation from others. And I've worked on that a lot because that's what I did as a teenager. Went to get validation from others. And my dad was very passive. He let my mom kind of rule the roost, and whatever she said went. And it didn't matter if it was good, bad, indifferent. So watching that dynamic sometimes you lean one way for some things and you lean the other way for another things. But and they always say you're a product of your environment, and I kind of disagree, because you can become what you want to become, and you learn from those patterns rather than repeat those patterns. And that's what I have tried to do my whole life. I've not always succeeded, but I try.
When two-part question, what was the indications now that you're older that you came to the um, conclusion that your mom was narcissist, and then number two, by her not helping you or your father to help you self-regulate, what were some of the poor choices that you made as a young girl growing up? Because you said you was always trying to seek that validation. That this validation means a lot of monogamous relationships as a young girl, being pregnant, making bad choices. What were some of those things that you had to deal with?
Yeah, so I got pregnant when I was 16 by someone that I really wasn't in a real relationship with. I just, seeking validation from male figures. And I did get pregnant when I was 16. And in the 80s, that was very taboo. So I was probably the only person I knew that was a teenager and pregnant in my school. But I chose that was my turning point, honestly, is having my own child. And when I looked at him, I thought there was no way I could treat him the way that I had been treated as a child. That he deserved much better than that. And watching him grow into a man, all of that has helped me try to be different than what my parents were. And that was the turning point for me, was having a baby when I was 16 and choosing to keep him. It was easy. My parents wanted me to have, get rid of the pregnancy, put him up for adoption, all the things, because they didn't want another mouth to feed. But I chose to not do that. I chose to have him and try to better myself. My parents didn't believe in, I won't say they didn't believe in, but they didn't push me to like go to college, or like I said, my mom wanted me to just find a man to take care of me. So I didn't do that at first. I was focused on raising this child, and I worked three jobs sometimes and did all the things that you should be doing to take care of your child. So that was my turning point, was the birth of my son.
How did that affect the situation in your home? Because they gave you two ultimatums and you basically said, no, I'm going to do this. So naturally, I'm pretty sure at 16 years old, you're dealing with peer pressure the people that you go to school with in a little small town.
Hmm.
How was you able to mentally go on knowing the gossip and the stuff that's going on behind the scene, and the fact that your parents um, was, I'm trying to use the right word. You can say me if I'm wrong. Self-centered in their own
Hmm.
stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were probably more worried about what the neighbors thought about your situation and bringing a mouth in the house and stuff. So, how do you, at 16 years old, really keep your mental state when you have never been taught how to self-regulate your mental state of mind?
Yeah. So to kind of set that up, my dad, when he found out I was pregnant, didn't talk to me literally my whole pregnancy. Lived in the same house, and he never spoke a word to me. He would say things to my mom, like, tell her this. Can you tell Stephanie that? And I'm sitting right there. And so that's, I mean, that's really hard mentally in itself, and not having to also deal with your peer group and being, the outcast of being pregnant and having this child. So mentally, like I said, I just wanted something different. So I really just let that stuff roll off my back. I knew from an early age that the things that were happening in my life today was not what's going to be happening in my life a year from now. So those people really didn't play a lot of part in how I felt about myself. I stood up to a few of them. That I was bullied. I went to a small school, and girls would say things to me and call me names and things like that, and I just kind of shrugged it off because I had to focus on making sure that my son had a healthy, happy life, and that was my main focus. So I'm not saying it was easy. It was hard some days, but I did it, and I worked a job. I fed a baby at 3 o'clock in the morning. I got up and went to school at 6 o'clock in the morning. I just had this mentality that I needed to do better for him. And so I kind of let some of that stuff roll off of me and just make me grow into a better person.
Let's move forward a little bit. Let's go to the social media.
Mhm.
You have a lot of stuff on there that, I get it. You're dealing with a narcissist. alleged narcissist. I can't say he or she, whatever is. So I have to use the word alleged.
Right.
You live the experience, but how did that even come about? Because to me, I'm not laughing at you, but this is I got to say this like it is. If you grew up in that environment, didn't you recognize the flags in the relationship?
Well, you know, honestly, there's so many different types of narcissism. There's overt narcissists, there's covert narcissism. They all operate a little differently. A lot of the same patterns, but they also a lot of different patterns. And covert narcissists tend to be able to fool you very easily. And through therapy, I ask myself those same questions like, how did you let this happen? You grew up in an environment like this. You're smart. You're successful. How did you let this person dupe you like this? But he was really good at it. He was really good at making you believe that he was a good person. He had a lot of trauma in his adult life and he played on that trauma, weaponized that trauma a little bit. So, me coming from this wounded background, I wanted to save him. I wanted to be the person that was the person that he could turn to for anything. And I was going to heal him from this trauma. And you just can't do that. You can't heal them from their trauma. So, he was able to kind of slip under the radar. And there were red flags, but they were he could easily explain them away, and I allowed him to do that. I allowed him to trample my boundaries a little bit because of the trauma he had experienced. So yeah, I ask myself that every day still.
But what was it about him to begin with that you gravitated to?
He's very charismatic. People like him, and my friends now will even tell you that wow, we were really fooled by him. He's very charismatic. He knows how to reel you in. He knows how to use his charm. He knows how to say the right things because narcissists mirror people. They know they're so in doubt of themselves that they have to mirror you. So he was reflecting all the same values that I thought I had. And I thought, wow, we're kind of on the same path. We had grown kids, we experienced trauma in our life. And he's just very charismatic and one of those people that just makes friends with everybody.
How did you, being educated, already going through this, and I assume you was in therapy prior to meeting him, or you got into therapy after the fact?
So I was in therapy prior to meeting him for childhood things and healing. And now I'm in therapy again with a trauma therapist. I didn't have a trauma therapist before. It's really important to get someone who is very well trained in trauma betrayal and narcissism. I just went to a regular counselor at the time. So I don't think I really had all the full tools
Mhm.
to understand what I was dealing with.
When you go to the trauma therapist, what was some of the key indicators that he or she told you that maybe made you pick that situation that you put yourself in?
Some of the key indicators for myself or just the situation in general.
Both.
Well, um, when you're not fully healed, you can go to therapy and be think you're healed. And like I said, I came from a household of like seeking validate. I had to seek validation, and he was giving that to me. I'd been in past relationships where I didn't feel like I got enough attention, and he was giving me all the attention. So when I look back on it now through therapy, I take some responsibility for that. Just dealing with the information you have in front of you. You don't have all the information. So you think you're smart and you're intelligent and you're not going to be duped by these things. But the the indicators for me looking back were that he was giving me a lot of attention and it was all the right attention. He was doing all the right things and saying all the right things. And it was something I'd never really had before. Like he knew what to do, but I think we were friends first for before we started in a relationship, and I think he studied me honestly. Like he heard about past traumas and he heard about past betrayals and he played on those, and that's looking back now, I understand that. Moving fast, that's another key indicator. Is we moved a little fast in the relationship. We didn't take a normal cadence of dating. We moved in pretty quickly together. I say quickly, about 6 months into dating. Um, I'm looking back on all those things now, and I'm like, wow, what a crazy thing to have done. But those were some of the indicators that the love bombing. He was really good at love bombing and making it not look like love bombing. It was acts of service. It wasn't like buying me things and things like that. He was doing things for me, but he did them excessively. So those are some of the indicators that we've determined that this was probably a narcissistic relationship.
When did it change? When did it become what I might call toxic?
Um, it really, honestly, it wasn't toxic all the way through. It was toxic at the end. When he, what I call monkey branched, he had met someone else, and he needed to determine whether I was who he wanted to be with or if this person was who he wanted to be with. And he become very cold, very distant. He was withholding, a lot of his affection. He was living in another state. He had moved to another state and met this person in another state. He became somebody I didn't even recognize. He's, would yell and scream at me and, put the phone on mute and put the phone down while I was talking. And this was all a way to get a reaction out of me. So it could be my fault that when he left me. So it became really toxic. It wasn't toxic, the whole relationship. It became really toxic probably the last 3 months of the relationship.
Now, some people would look at the your story and say, okay, scorn woman, pissed that he left you for another woman. You had to be in love with him, or you guys wouldn't at least cohabitated all this particular point. What's your take on that? Because let me go here so this makes a little bit more sense because I don't want to badger or make people think I'm badgering you. I'm going by
Right.
what I hear and what I see. Um, my question would be, why donate that much time and effort to focus on the way the guy treated you if he's already moved on with his life? Like, what is it that's still in your inner being that's
Mhm.
making you focus so much on the betrayal or the hurt that you suffered from his action when he's who he is? And according to your thing that you're teaching people now, is you can't change him
That's
no
right.
more than he can change you. So why is it still affecting you? Is it because of your childhood?
I don't think it's affecting me as much as it was in the beginning of the breakup. I don't even like to call it a breakup. It was literally a discard. He literally overnight said, "I don't want to do this anymore." In the beginning, yeah, when I first started my social media, yes, I was the scorned woman and was very upset that he had done this to me. And then through therapy, I realized the patterns and I don't want to go into his past. That's his story to tell, but um there are some things that he did with past relationships that I started to understand the patterns. So now into for today, I don't live in what I feel about him anymore. I'm really just focused on wanting to help other people recognize the patterns because narcissists and a dismissive avoidance rely on you being quiet. They don't want you to tell the story. They've rewritten the story. They have their own narrative of how horrible you were as a person, but they want you they rely on you to be quiet because they can move on to their next victim with no consequence. And I just don't think that they should live with no consequences. So that's why my social media is not really about being a scorned woman. um I was in the beginning, but there is truth to what I'm saying, and I want to be able to tell my story without him telling my story that's not correct. And then I want to also help other people recognize those patterns.
So who is he telling your story to that's going to affect you and your development and you keeping your beast mindset and amplifying other women to avoid these patterns? So what is he doing that's that's lighting firecrackers or dynamite in your surroundings.
Um, uh, we have very mutual friends. We were together for quite a long time, and he's also very close friends with some of my family members. And he's made some comments to very close family members of things that just weren't true. And like I said, he's very charismatic, so he's very believable, and he doesn't even have anything to back that up. And so I did rely on that trauma of being felt like you're telling my story and I don't want to you're not going to tell my story in the beginning. Now it's more like I said about empowering other people, and sometimes that comes out in my personal journey, my personal take on the situation and how I got myself in that situation. I don't lean on that too much anymore. Now I'm just telling my story to help other people, if that makes sense.
When does the story change? Because you're still giving the attention to the person that you're trying to heal from. Well, not well, let me rephrase that. You're not trying to heal from him. You're trying to heal from a constant cycle
Hmm.
of the same thing that you grew up with. So, how difficult is it for you to really move beyond that, to be an example to the people that you're trying to uh, um, um, look at you as a role model?
Well, so that's where the reset and rebuild school is going to come in to play with the resources and to help people understand these patterns, because I won't tell you that I'm completely moved on and healed from the relationship. It's only been about 8 months. And when your nervous system is wired to somebody, it takes a little while to separate that and learn how to regulate yourself, because your regulation before came from the person who broke you, and now you don't have that person. So I'm still kind of dealing with that through therapy. But I have moved past the betrayal part of it. Does it sting? Of course it does. But I do want to be a role model to help people understand that healing is not linear. It's not in a straight line. You can be okay one day and not the next, and that's okay. It's okay to not sit you don't sit and try to intellectualize your feelings and explain it away, because you're not going to be able to. So I won't say that I'm giving him any kind of power. I'm sure he thinks that I am because that's what narcissists do. Oh, she's still talking about me, so she must have some power. I still have power over her, and I don't see it that way. He can see it however he wants to. I don't really put too much stock into what he thinks or what he sees or care what he thinks. But I think by telling my story and the things that I went through and the trauma and the betrayal and how I felt about it at the time and how I still feel about it on some days is going to be able to help me even move forward. Um, and reliving that and knowing that I don't want to do that again. I'm going to recognize this pattern the next time. And I want you to recognize it in your partner or someone that you're thinking about dating.
Now, how did you come up with the conclusion that he was a narcissist? Because you're not a doctor.
That's correct.
So how do you
Um,
with that analogy that he's a narcissist? He may just be a person that's his allure to women. You know what I mean?
yeah. Hmm. Well, um, there's a lot of history with him in different relationships that I know for a fact, like talking with his wife, things that he did, things that, that he lied about. He's lied about a lot of things he didn't even have to lie about. He's cheated in several relationships. He's also very grandiose. Everything is about image to him. And when people say things like, the whole world can burn down as long as I make money, that's a very narcissistic trait. Like, money is not the end all be all, but to him it is. And everything is about image. So everything that he does and every person that he steps on is, in his mind, elevating him in some way. So he just goes from this to the next person who has this resource he can exploit, to the next person who has this resource he can exploit. And those are very narcissistic traits. You're right. I can't diagnose him as a narcissist. He just has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And through therapy and me explaining a lot of those stories and a lot of things that happened in the relationship, my therapist has said it. more than likely he is a narcissist, but of course, I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose him with that. It's just the history and the actions that he's taken with different relationships, including myself.
Let's talk about. I think this is crazy. So you said something. Um, what was the purpose behind really doing a in-depth research on him once he left? Like you said, you contacted his ex-wife and different people. Like, what closure was you getting out of that to do that?
Uh, well, I didn't reach out to his ex-wife. She reached out to me. Um, I had met her several times because that's part of the narcissism is there was this triangulation. He told me a lot of things about her, um, a lot of things that I believed, and so I didn't like her because I thought she was just this horrible person. In the After the breakup, she reached out to me, and I agreed to meet with her. And we
Why did she
met, and
reach
we
out
had
to
a
you?
long.
What was her purpose for wanting to reach out to you? Like, was she
She
micromanaging him after he broke up with her?
No, she was done with him. Like they had been separated. They had been not been together for a very long time. She got into a relationship after him that ended badly through cheating and things like that. And she just wanted me to talk to her because I'd kind of experienced this with her ex husband. So it was more of a trying to understand like how did she get into a relationship with someone after him that did the same things. And it really wasn't to bash the ex or all of any of those things. It was just a lot of things came out during this conversation as to, why we were never able to be friends before, even though he said he wanted us to be friends, but we never were. So it didn't make a lot of sense. So those things just kind of came up in the conversation. And then you just start to learn things that were happening that you were unaware of.
And what kind of pattern cycle is this? Like, how did they help you in any shape, form, or fashion?
Um, it helped me to understand who he really was rather than who he pretended to be. Um, and when you're
You
first going
getting
through a break,
information from another woman that was scorned as well.
she wasn't scorned by him. She was the one who wanted she was the one who wanted the marriage to be over. She's moved past him a long time ago. They're actually, you know, very cordial with each other. They have children, so they that are grown, but they have children. But what helped me is because I could not rationalize the two people that I was dealing with. He was this really great, wonderful, so I thought, partner, but then in the end, he became this really cold, cruel, lying person, and I couldn't understand that. And with talking to her, I was starting to see that this person that I thought was really great and wonderful really was not who he was. Um, Lies that he had told through the relationship. And so it helped me to understand and put those two people together because I couldn't put them together.
Mhm.
And I was still idealizing the person that I was in love with and thinking how he's this person, he's this great guy. But she helped me through some things that were personal to our between us. There were lies that were told that kept us separate. He was telling her one thing, he was telling me something else, and we learned those lies, and it helped me put those two people together. The good guy I thought he was, and the pathological liar that he is, and it helped me to not idealize him so much anymore and realize that who he showed me in the end is who he always was. And he was just really good at hiding it. So it was very healing, honestly. It was very cathartic to hear that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't making these things up, that I was not this scorned woman, that I actually had been lied and manipulated the whole relationship.
When he decided that he wanted to move on, why couldn't you just let him go?
Again, because that's what they rely on is you to just let them go so they can go on to their next victim and not being called out for their behaviors and being held accountable. Now, he'll probably never hold himself accountable, I will hold him accountable for what he did and or how he acted. And he'll probably never do that. I'll never get the closure from him. And I don't even look for the closure from him anymore. The closure I needed is the disrespect he showed me in the end. And learning that that's who he is as a person. And that's who he will always probably be. But I don't need, I didn't need the closure from him. So it really is just they don't get to me they don't get to walk away with no consequences. They don't get to treat people horribly and then just walk away and go live a sunshiny life and me just be quiet and say, yep, it just didn't work out. That's what he relies on me saying. Yep, it just didn't work out, and that's not the truth.
So are you also trying to send a message to the current girlfriend to hope that maybe she might see your social media posts and reevaluate her relationship with this guy now?
Honestly, no, I don't. She has me blocked on social media. um so I'm sure she doesn't see it. I don't really she plays no part in why I do what I do. She'll learn it on her own. She'll figure it out if she pays attention. She'll figure it out on her own. I've never reached out to her. I've never sent her a private message and said, "Hey, this is what happened." I have never spoken to her one time. And so most of my videos are not about her, and they're not about him. They're about me, and they're about my journey and how I got to where I'm at, how I fell for the narcissist, how I lived through that relationship, and how now I'm moving forward from that relationship. And it's not about reaching out to her. I never encourage anybody to do that. It really would not do any good. She's not going to listen to me anyway.
What are some of the positive and the negative that you're getting on social media for um, what you're dealing with?
I get a lot of positives, more positives than negatives. The negatives that I get usually are kind of the same line that the same thing you're asking is, just move on. Why are you still talking about it? That's a lot of the negative. But I get mostly positive. I get a lot of DMs, a lot of private messages that men too are going through this and they feel alone. They don't understand it. And they're like, I thought I was the only one that experienced this. People have been in long-term marriages, 30 years, um, and abusive toxic marriages. And I get more positive than negative, but yeah, there is negative. It's mostly the, why don't you just move on? But moving on it doesn't work like that. Like if you could just say just move on, I always say great. I could have done that. That would have been a great concept for me to just move on. But your central nervous system doesn't work there. There's a lot of studies now about betrayal trauma and how it causes PTSD. And it's I promise it's a real thing. And I went through it for the first few months. I was a mess. And um, but yeah, the negatives, I don't really pay a lot of attention to those, because that's not my message. It's not about pushing people down and making them feel like they don't have a voice.
But this isn't the only relationship that you've been in. I assume you've been in relationships before this one, correct?
That's correct.
So what were the other ones? Did they have this were they the same type of breakup or what?
No, when I was married, we actually sat down, had a conversation. We were young and we just kind of grew apart. We really did just grow apart. We wanted different things in life. There was no betrayal. There was no cheating. There was an actual real conversation. And we just parted our ways. That's not what happened in this relationship. So, sometimes relationships just don't work out for whatever reason. And and I moved forward from those. They were not narcissistic. They weren't bad. They weren't cheating. They weren't doing any of those things. We grew apart.
What do you wish he would have done differently that would have not made you feel the way you're feeling now?
That he would have had a conversation with me, and said, these are the things that bothers me. These are the things that bother me, and let's have a conversation about them. He literally sent me a text message with a list: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 items on this list of everything he thought was wrong in our relationship that he had never talked to me about,
What were,
and I didn't
what
even
were,
know
what were the
what
six?
was on.
What were the six? I'm curious.
I'd have to pull them up because I honestly don't care about them anymore, but I can tell you a couple of them. One of them is that I didn't want to have a relationship with his ex-wife, and go to family dinners and things like that, which was not true. One of them was that he had built a successful business, and while I was trying to build my business, I didn't want to take advice from him, and which also was not true. And he had never said that before. Um, he was building a business, and he wanted me to help him in the business, and I did. I supported him in the business. I had my own job, and I was going to school at the time, and I helped him as much as I could. And then he said, and every time I would say, "Do you want me to help you?" And he'd say, "No, no, no, you're busy. Don't worry about it. I got it." And then in the end, it was like, "You didn't support me enough in the business, and you knew I wanted you to help me." Um, Even though I was offering to help the whole time, but it was just I don't know the rest of the list. It's oh, we didn't build a house. He was no better off than when he met me because we hadn't built a house yet. But that's what we were working towards, honestly, was to build our dream home. And then he used it against me that we hadn't done it yet. And a year later, he still hasn't done it.
So now let's go to a lighter note. And thank you for
Okay.
taking time to come on the show and share such a base mindset story. So let's go here. You're now taking all of this pain and you're creating reset and rebuild. What's that about? And why the need for this? Is this based on your experience? What's the whole concept with this?
So I don't know if people, if you're familiar with how school communities work, it's kind of set up like a classroom, like a school. And so you have your own school, and there's different tabs. There's community tabs. There's the classroom tab. There's a calendar tab. And so in the community tab, you can just people can just talk and share stories, share advice, what they've gone through. It gives people a voice. TikTok is a little hard because people make comments and then nobody responds to them. Nobody says anything except for maybe me, but there's no real community of it's just me and that viewer usually. Some people will comment back, but they're not really learning anything from it. It's just like people saying, "Oh, so sorry you went through that," and there's no real community. So on the community tab on school, there'll be topics that we can actually talk about, Q&As, and actual real time conversation. In the classroom tab, there'll be classroom. It's basically like a classroom, and there'll be modules set up to go through each step of the reset and the rebuild, and then living that after you've reset and you've rebuilt your life, and how to actually live it with maximum impact and minimum drama. And that's how the classroom will be set up. And then there's the calendar tab where you will schedule Zoom meetings once a week, and we as a community will actually get on a call together and have real time live stories. Even on TikTok live, you can't do that. It's me talking and people typing comments, and it's not the same. Like you and I having this conversation. So there'll be Zoom calls. There'll be opportunities for people to have one-on-ones with me if they want to. So it's just a community to help people have an actual real voice and people actually talk back to them.
Where is the they're talking with you, but my question is, you're still talking with people that have either encountered or dealt with some type of trauma or narcissists in your case. So
Hmm.
the question here is, you're not being a doctor or anything like that. What kind of advice are they actually getting, and where is this advice coming from that's going to help them to understand the situation without holding uh, the internal process of what just happened to them and having it recycle over and over again or being triggered by it?
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor, and they of course have their place. I'm in therapy. I go every week, but there is some validity to talking to people who've actually experienced it. Trauma coaches, trauma therapists, they can give you some insight to how to deal with things, but if they've never dealt with it, they don't really understand everything about it. They've heard other people talk about it, but people really lean towards people who have experienced these things and gone through them and did the research to understand like what happened and why did I allow myself to get into that situation. um, there is some validity into talking to someone that's not a doctor, and it's helped me. My therapy has helped me, and I encourage people to go to therapy. I'm not a doctor, so they may can give you some tools and some resources that I can't give you, but I will listen. I will give you the things that helped me, and I will point you in the right direction for a resource that may can help you, even if it's not me.
Sounds good. Let me ask you this question, Stephanie. How can the viewers reach out to you to know more about your new project that you're doing? And if they've gone through this and they just want a voice or a lending ear, they can reach out to you. How can they do that?
If they have TikTok, they of course can reach me on TikTok. My username on TikTok is mindfulness and mimosas. They can reach out through the school community. I will say it is a subscription based community. It's not very expensive, and you get all those things that I said for free. I'm in the process of writing an doing an ebook to help with some resources. So that would be on the school. So you can just search that in school, and it's school SKOOL. And you just search reset and rebuild and join from there. And then there's also a Facebook page, the reset and rebuild.
Sounds like a winner. You know what, Steph? Thank you so much for being so transparent. I hope you continue on your healing journey and helping other individuals to keep that beast mindset and reset their way of thinking, seeing patterns, and basically living a more healthy and healthier life in a healthier mind. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you subscribe, click, touch that button. All it takes is one click to make a difference in your life or change somebody else's. This has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.